Oh,
I'm
okay.
sure
I
I
will.
don't know.
I will be
All the
right back. I'm gonna make a run. I'll be back like in 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
call you 3 minutes,
Oh,
okay?
okay, sweetie. And could you add 3 minutes?
Yep, I already did.
Of course. Thank you, hon.
All right, bye bye.
Bye bye. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Hi, Jewel.
All right, I'm
Okay.
gonna put you through and call up the pastor, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
good? Your week's been good?
Yeah, my week's been good. I was sick last week. That's why I wasn't there last week, but
I try not to think about crap so nice things. That's what I didn't mention.
stop it. You acting like that affected your whole week or something.
Now this is the worst. The worst. To you matters. You have to be when you celebrate it. And when you're not when you celebrate it, it's the worst. It's the worst.
It is. Well, we're going to celebrate today. The gang's all here, right? I just checked your audio. You both sound great over Facebook.
Great.
Awesome.
Okay, let's get right to it. Hey, sweetie, how are you?
We have 3 minutes.
Okay, great. Okay, I forgot to press send to Mr. Swanson. So he didn't know if he was going to be on or not, so I just sent him an email. But I've got more than enough people. How you doing, hon?
You already know making this thing do everything I can't stand.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right, so let's get right to it. Let's get right to it. Oops. Okay. No. Let me get a new set of glasses today since I'm doing another set of colors. I have to do it like that, Darius.
I love your glasses.
You know, I got to change up the colors, honey. Because I am, because I'm doing something different. Just a little bit different today. Hey, everybody. Hey, Robert. Hey, Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia. Let me see who else is here. Daryl. Wonderful Joyce. Oh, Joe. How you doing, sweetie? It's good seeing you. Oh, boy. Okay. And I send you much love too, Joseph. And Michael Ann. My original morning star. Sending you all much love. Today we're going to be talking about what happened in Ohio. I told you all it's going to become much more complex. Former President Trump went there because he, I think, has been able to make something of what people would call a political error. This derailment that is much more serious than the corporate media have said. This derailment occurred February 3rd. So it's almost been a month. And people are sick. And they know something is wrong. And they're very upset about it. That having been said, former President Trump got there before President Biden did. Not good. Not good. And remember, this is an area... this is an area that went toward President Trump. I'm going to tell you something. January 6th was no anomaly. It is something that is connected to something deep inside of the culture. People feel betrayed. People feel shortchanged. And there you have it. And so you're going to see much more of this. And these people, the way they took on the governor of Ohio last night on CNN on the town hall meeting, the way they took on the president of Norfolk Southern, I'm going to tell you something. Pastor, these folks are not playing. They're like, this man said, I'm 65 years old, I'm diabetic. I think you have shortened my lifespan. You have made me sick. Oh, yeah, no, these folks took it to them. And so for us not to, that's why I said, you got to acknowledge, the Bible tells you in all of your ways acknowledge God. God is truth. Now,
we have about 30 seconds or so.
Great.
I like the glasses.
Oh, thank you.
I like them.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you. Love, it's like a tortoise shell.
That's right.
Like
oh, thank you. See, the young understand. They do.
we're going to have a fantastic show.
Absolutely.
And we're about to go live.
Let the words of our mouths and the meditations of our heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Thank you, and thank all of my morning stars.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. And it's a joy to be with you today. What are we talking about? We're talking about what's happening in Ohio, this environmental disaster, and it's also a political, it's a very tumultuous situation politically. President Trump, for his portion, went down to Ohio to be in solidarity with these people whose town has been poisoned. But it was the rollbacks of his administration that helped to make this possible. Yeah. Because the Obama administration tried to institute greater regulations on the train system, and everybody, it impacts all of us. We are all, but we could all be in East Palestine, Ohio. So we've got to talk about that today. Got to talk about it. That powerful town hall meeting last night on CNN impacted me greatly because it could happen to all of us. 1/3 of our goods are moved in the United States by rail, by train. And yet we have a Civil War era braking system on the train system. It has not been changed in 160 years. Who does that? And politically, President Biden went to Ukraine before he went to East Palestine, Ohio. Remember, politics is a game of optics, everybody. You can't do those things. I mean, and it makes President Trump look like the hero when it was his pushback or his advocacy for corporatism that helped to get us into this mess. Well, the door was already open because now the Biden administration is siding with the Norfolk Railroad Company, not allowing people to sue them. You can't make this stuff up. This is about corporatism, everybody. This is about the corporatocracy, not the democracy. Remember that. It is, we got a lot to talk about, everybody. I want you to get out here and vote. Everybody can vote in all 50 wards. We have an election for mayor on February 28th, on Tuesday. Who have you chosen? I'm trying to get the last 3 candidates, so put it out there. I've reached out to Mayor Lightfoot, Congressman Garcia, and I'm going to have Commissioner Brandon Johnson. So I need to get a yes from Congressman Garcia, and I need to get a yes from the mayor. So there you have it, putting it out there. Let them know. I'm looking for them. I'm trying to get them on my show. So let's get right to it, everybody. And let's talk about what's happening in Ohio and what we would do should we have to deal with that kind of emergency ourselves, because it could happen to anyone. In Chicago, we will have a high of 42 degrees today. Windy, Minneapolis, St. Paul, you're in the midst of snowmageddon. As of about a couple of hours ago, they already had 10 inches of snow. They're expecting about 2 feet, up to 2 feet of snow. Wow. Winter storm warning, praying for the people of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the 70 million who have been impacted by this weather emergency all over the country. The NHL, well, the NBA is still on that all-star break. That will end tomorrow night. In the NHL, Chicago 4, the Stars 3. The Wild will be playing the Blue Jackets tonight. So everybody, I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773 WCPT. And let's talk about did President Biden make his mistake by not going to Ohio first? Hey, it's February 3rd, everybody. February 3rd. He's had some time to get down there. So I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Let me pivot to Pastor Darius Brooks, Grace Central in Westchester, Illinois. They are serving food, could be serving you. And if you need something to eat, please go on and get there. That's right, Carol Soskin. It is outrageous. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. Outrageous what's happening there. And when you see these people who cannot believe that this is happening to them, your heart breaks. But this happens all over the country all the time. So, Pastor Brooks, I'm glad to see you. Love you, love you, love you. Want to know how we can get to your church because a lot of people need food. They need help. A lot of people are struggling. And then you, of course, go on and give us the good news.
Please, Grace Central, please, I love you. Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois. That's right off of 290 and Manheim every Tuesday from 5 till 7, and Wednesday for seniors from noon till 2. That's every Tuesday. Then under God's Son, do it at Grace Central, feeding 8 different townships, and anybody who wants food, please. And we ain't talking about no crackers and peanut butter jelly. We talk about $200 to $300 worth of food, eggs, milk, cheese, chicken mix, hams, chicken, turkey, the whole nine. We are really doing this and serving God's community and His people. Santita, I'm always excited about the word, and you are doing an amazing job. Keep yourself up, girl. We got work to do, and we got some lives to save, some people to set free, and you are doing a great job on your show. Santita, Proverbs 18:1. I'm a well-balanced teacher at Grace Central Church, and it's just all the good stuff God can do, but it's also the crazy stuff He used to get us off our butt. Did you hear what I just said? Proverbs 18:1-24. Probably won't be with you long. Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. When wickedness comes, contempt comes also, and with dishonor comes disgrace. The words of a man's mouth are deep waters. The fountain of wisdom is a bubbling brook. It is not good to be partial to the wicked or to deprive the righteous of justice. Santita, I'm useful about this morning when I'm done convincing me. When I'm done convincing me. Santita, God, which is His word, in our direction already have life's adventure approved, planned, and scripted. It's almost like 3 months ago, Santita, or a year ago, or even 2 years ago. You get my point? People didn't know or had a clue we'd be in the places that we're in right now. And wonderfully, if we're still standing, we've created a how to get over and through whatever was or is that concerns us. Because we know without a shadow of a doubt, because you don't or want to isolate yourself from how God's direction comes into our lives. We don't want to isolate ourselves from God by not seeking His judgment for our lives. Because you know in your heart that God doesn't fail. And when we really desire God's guidance and guidelines, we embrace the past failures. We embrace that past failures does not include us from even the future God's promised adventure. And that, on the contrary, God specializes in redeeming our failures while being faithful to Him, and in Him being faithful to us. Santita, I'm about to get up out of here. Santita, I heard you talk about Ohio and bureaucracy, not democracy. But when we trust God and humble ourselves and be obedient to God's word, we almost miss the crazy. The sacrifices that we go through puts us in harm's way because He strengthens us. And where there is unity, there is strength. And He makes us available to only be strong in Him and afford us the ability to share our stories so that others who have hit rock bottom with grace and God can still overcome any and all obstacles. So what is your broken place? What is my broken place? What's going on with us? Whatever it is, don't celebrate what's ungodly, wickedness, ill ambitions, and don't deprive your maturity in and through God's word. Mature yourself, everything about you in God, because your maturity is you using God's wisdom, and it justifies and qualifies you always for your bubbling brooks. And Tina, I'm done with convincing myself. I've been told God, your will is what's best for me. And then close, don't quit or wholeheartedly do God. They both hurt, but one is going to add up.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Your will is what's best for me. I mean, it's true because we really think we've got it all figured out. But you know what they say? Man plans, God laughs. Ask
I
God.
like that.
Well, I was reading this wonderful book. Bishop Henry Williamson gave it to me. What on earth am I here for? And he said, God has given me the spirit of discernment, and I think I need to give this book to you. And he was absolutely right. And the book put it this way. You ask your friends for advice, and you don't ask your creator for advice. You would never get a wonderful piece of equipment, a new television, a vacuum cleaner, a refrigerator. That's because everything's computerized now, without reading the instruction manual, without asking the person or the entity that made it, can you help me work this out? And I think that's what I got from you today. Trust God, really, everybody. And I am mindful of the fact that everybody listening here does not believe in God. And I do not judge you for that. I just try to share with you the things that have gotten me through. I would not be here today, I know, but for God. I wouldn't.
That's why you're here. That's why that book is so
Mhm.
timely, and it's very true. I often tell Grace Central, I am not God, and I'm not playing him. He did not here to put me here to save the world. But right here in Grace Central, and those in my life, Santita Jackson, family, friends, this is my world. I tell Grace Central, the word of God says, be in the world, but not of the world. You have to create your world in this world to be strengthened, to be able to be in here. We're supposed to be in here, but we're not supposed to be up here. And when we create our world, we become strengthened so that the world will not affect God's promises for us. That's how we do this thing. And that's why I said, where there's unity, there is strength. God is still there, since he's still our Savior. And he said a lot of the unbelievers are not on here, and you are absolutely right. But this is your platform. You are a believer. I'm a believer. And like we said, we don't judge them. But if you come into my house, just make sure you take your shoes off. I don't like stuff in my carpet. The word God says, when you're at home, you do some Romans. The word is so crazy, amazing. I tell Grace Central often, stop paying attention to what God is doing and do what he told you to do, because he'll send the right kind of person at the right time to do the right thing for you to accomplish the promises that God says. And then he'll give us strength with the world, like your dad. I'll be with him today and looking at him every time I see him and everything he's been through. I'm not talking about the stuff that people judge him of. I'm talking about every good thing your father does or have done have made an impact on this world. You can't take that away from him. I don't care what you say. And when I see him and I'm in his presence, I look at the work that he's done, that he's fought, and everybody around him should take that mantle, utilize what he has given us, and finish this story and fight with the love of God. And God is a promise keeper. The end is already scripted, Santita. It really is. It's already scripted. All God has asked us to do is the steps we take, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Let's fight, get together, get the right people. And the only thing we have to do is stop the wicked. God punishes the wicked. But our position is to stop them by standing for truth.
Amen.
And that's all God ever.
Amen. I mean, I have to tell you, we have Dr. Knighton on. Now, that is what I saw when I was looking at the CNN town hall meeting with these humble working class people, mostly poor working people who were white, who were in Ohio, and they've had this ecological disaster, and it's a political disaster as well. You find that Governor DeWine's campaign has received a lot of money from Norfolk Southern, the train company. You find that the residents were told by Norfolk Southern that that the water was okay, but the testing company was paid for. The testing was paid for by Norfolk Southern. Are you serious right now? Are you serious?
Right.
And now the Biden administration is standing with Norfolk Southern so the people cannot sue them. Are you serious right now? Oh no, something's got to be done about this. This could be you next, you and me. And they told these people to go home. Go home. You can drink the water from the tap. Are you joking me? I wouldn't do it. I would not do it. But what else are they going to do? That's what's so horrible. Oh no, see right there, Pastor Dr. Shanina Knighton. I mean, I saw that town hall meeting last night on CNN, and I was just so moved, but I was also infuriated. I said, I'm looking at these people and they're like in disbelief and they know something is wrong, Dr. Knighton. These last 3 minutes, they belong to you. They know something's wrong.
I agree, Santita. I'll be honest, like, it's so interesting because I watched last night too, and I think the thing is that was just so bothersome was, oh, we'll get to it. That was the underlying thing, you know, and we'll get to it, and that was bothersome. Oh, I called 2 weeks ago when it happened, and it's like, oh, we're just not making a plan. It's like, oh, yeah, we'll do this. And we're talking about a population of people that have had to deal with these problems now for about 3 weeks. And so the lack of urgency because the CEO is not submerged in it, and it's disturbing. The fact that these people have real stories and they're expressing what's going on with their land. They're expressing the fact that even before this happened, their reliance on well water and not feeling comfortable with the well water and their existing systems for which they were processing the water. The fact that the company even is saying, well, we got to dig up the soil in that area. And we're going to do testing, and we'll do testing as long as it takes. It doesn't sound like a plan to me. That sounds like you're trying to tell me something to try to pacify me. And so I really empathize with those individuals yesterday because it still sends a message that all of us have faced even during this pandemic. And it's recognizing that we may not be saved when we need to be saved the most. And sometimes that's early in a crisis. That's early when something bad is happening. And so how do you go in and say to yourself, who's really going to rescue me? Or how do I become my own oxygen mask early on in something? Because I know that I'm not going to be somebody's immediate priority when it comes to such a crisis. And that's what this has shown us. That's what the COVID-19 early, when people couldn't get access to testing, or they couldn't go inside of healthcare facilities despite their conditions. When we keep being in these situations, that's what these situations continue to tell us. And so we have to be more preventative. We have to think about, if I'm in this situation, how do I protect myself and how do I protect others? Opposed to thinking that someone's going to come in and give a timely rescue and won't come in and do the right thing.
Well, you know what I tell you, it's the political pressure. We have to, the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, the founder of Christ Universal Temple. Indeed, you remember her, Darius Brooks, Pastor Brooks. She really brought new thought to the Black community. And she said, you know, it works when you work it. This country works when we work it. When we decide to move, the government moves. And the government moves in the direction of corporations, not because of lobbyists, but because of lobbyists are paid for by the corporations. Please take the word lobbyist out of your mouth. Because they're not the issue. It's the corporations. They're hired guns. They work for corporations that demand that the game favors them. Now, we must fight so that the game is balanced. Balanced. Think about that on the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Let's work it out, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a minute. Ooh, Dr. Knighton, when I was watching that town hall meeting, I was just furious. You know, I was like, are you all serious right now? Do you really think I'm this dumb? Oh.
I never felt so gaslit. I tell you what, and I wasn't even the individual. I was like, it seems so scripted. I don't know. It seems so politically correct. I would say it's okay.
Well, you know, I thought when I was watching the CEO of Norfolk Southern, and hey, I don't know the gentleman, and God bless him. I said, now these people on an ordinary day would never be able to get to his office. If they went to the headquarters, they'd never be able to get near him. I remember years ago, more than 30 years ago, not Roger Moore, Michael Moore had a movie, Roger and Me, when he was trying to see the head of GM, the chairman and CEO, Roger Smith. And they would not let him near, he could barely get through the front door of the headquarters, of the world headquarters of General Motors. You know, I mean, these are the masters of the universe. So to see him in his denims, looking casual, I was like, he said, we're going to be here until it's finished. And I said, no, honey. Your company is worth $53 billion. You just gave Governor DeWine $10,000 just a few weeks ago. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I've been reading, honey. Wait. Now the Biden Department of Justice is supporting you to prevent us from suing you. It's a bipartisan betrayal. Then I got to see the president in Ukraine before I see him in Ohio. Yeah, y'all, I'm mad about that. I am. This happened February 3rd. It's almost a month ago. Yeah, this is ridiculous.
It is, and that's my problem with it right there. Exactly what you said, February 3rd. Y'all now putting the town hall on the TV yesterday. These people have had to live.
And you know why they did that? Because people have been talking about it. They see the chitter chatter in social media. People are furious about it. That's what they're responding to. Street heat, not sweet heat, y'all. Street heat. You. And nothing fills the establishment with greater fear than angry white people. Now, black folks can move them. Yes, we can. And we do. Because every great movement in this country, we've been at the center of it. We have pushed the envelope in this piece. But let me tell you who they fear. All the little folks in Ohio. And they were looking at each other eyeball to eyeball. They eyeballed the governor, told them they didn't believe him, and the head of this $53 billion company. They said, we don't believe you. And you heard us.
It was eyeballing their own mayor.
Ooh, wait a minute. Yeah, because the mayor said, look, you slapped us in the face.
I know, but he said at the beginning,
well, he rolled back.
They're going to do the right thing.
Oh, he rolled back. There's no question. He rolled back. Because he was told he better roll back.
Yeah, he felt like he was trying to correct me.
Oh, no, because he got a lot of pressure, because that's the name of the game. But that's when his people have to press him and say, hey, no, you hold on to the point. See, we have to understand, this is not a love fest. This ain't no date. It's a destination, okay? Politics is about pressure. And the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I keep trying to share that with everybody. You must push, even if it's someone you voted for. My brother, I love him with all of my heart. But I know the people who didn't vote for him. I know the people who did not support him. I know a lot of them. Now they want to be his best friend. And they're going to press him to serve their interests. So the people who sent him need to press him to serve theirs, which ultimately will be for the greater good of the country. But I promise you got to press. You must press. Press. When you get to Washington, I was an intern on the Hill. Interns.
We have about 10 seconds here till we're live.
All right.
Attorney Hoffler and Bryce Green on, and
okay.
On the others.
Okay, very
and
good.
Rick Falls is on as well.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Interns are pulled by lobbyists on behalf of other interests. Think about that.
Here we go.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. It is Thursday, February 23rd, the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about what's happening in Ohio with this train derailment, Norfolk Southern. Now, it happened February 3rd. Now you see uh, President Trump went down there, even though his administration overturned the regulations that the Obama administration tried to institute to make the railway safer. Look, how do you have a system that transports 30% of our goods, have a braking system that is from the Civil War era? That's in the 1850s and 1860s, y'all. That's 1860. That's 160 years ago. Who does that? We have not had, we need infrastructure. And while we are giving all this money away to everybody else, you know, we need it right here. And I am not a right winger. I am not a Republican. And I am so tired of the corporate media framing this discussion so that you believe that the only people who feel that, wait a minute, we need to ask them questions about all this money going to Ukraine and every place else. About half of the Pentagon's budget goes to military contractors. Are you serious? You have people who are serving the military who are going to get payday loans because they don't have enough money to get something to eat. So what is this about? And you need to be asking these questions because it's your money. Chaparral, you have a big event coming up on March 3rd, is it?
Yes, Santita, we are having our annual gala for the Courtney Copeland Memorial Foundation on March 3rd, 2023 at the JLM Community Center, 2622 West Jackson at 7 p.m. We're asking everyone to come out and support this great gala. We are going to have food, entertainment, as well as also we're going to be dancing. So it's going to be a great time, Santita. So you can purchase a ticket at www.copelandmemorial.com. That's www.copelandmemorial.com. And the money raised is actually going to support our college scholarship funds. So please come and help us out and raise money for kids to go to school. So please visit www.copelandmemorial.com. Thank you so much, Santita.
Amen. She caught me mid-rant today. I guess I'm all wound up. Is Dr. Knighton still there?
No, we had to drop her.
Okay. It's unfortunate because, you know, she is from Cleveland and East Palestine, Ohio is only 85 miles from Cleveland. So this little mushroom cloud where they had to, you know, burn off these chemicals, that's over to Cleveland, Pennsylvania, all of this. And we need to be concerned, very concerned, because people in that town, in that area, are sick. The state had to set up a clinic for them. And the people who populate the clinic don't know how to treat them. So they've had to go past the doctors, the physicians, and get toxicologists. People who study poison. They've been poisoned. 773-763-9278. We've got attorney C.K. Hoffler. I want to know about a lawsuit. Though that's not going to restore people's lives. But let me go to you, Bryce Green. I mean, because this is corporate greed at its most naked. It's most naked. I mean, this is just unbelievable. Bryce Green.
Right. Not only is it just corporate greed, it's also an instruction about how exactly our country operates, about what priorities our country has and who our country works for. Like you said, the administration of several administrations have refused to implement the proper safety standards. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, he really denied that he can do much about this issue. But of course, on the other hand, you have the Biden administration pouring millions and billions of dollars into other projects, things like war making, things like building more planes and more tanks, and sending aid to fuel the proxy war in Ukraine. That's where our energies go. And so we all know that Pete is visiting the residents in East Palestine, and we all know how much he likes to imitate Obama. I mean, what does that remind you of? When Obama took the fake drink of water at Flint, Michigan, and assigned to all the people, telling them that they're overreacting and that everything's fine. It's echoes of these past administrations' failures. And it's really difficult to see why this is not the center of attention, why people don't compare what we could be doing to what we are doing now. People don't understand that this is a consistent failure industry is operating.
You know, do we have David Swanson up, my board operator?
We do.
Okay, let me bring him up right now because I know he's got to take the kids to school. But of course, the rage against the war machine, where so much of our money is going to these wars, we don't even know why we're fighting them. We don't know what the point is, and there is no end in sight. I want you to talk to us because now President Biden is taking heat because President Trump, of all people, got to Ohio before he did. The optics on this are just mind blowing. You got President Biden in Ukraine. This happened February 3rd, and you got President Trump getting off a plane, even though he stopped you know, the regulations that the Obama administration, they were trying to make some kind of headway. Talk to us, David Swanson.
Well, the Obama administration was trying to do quite a number of things regarding brakes and speed limits and stronger cars on trains and labeling dangerous trains as high hazard flammable trains so that local officials would know what was burning in these giant fires. And they backed off on almost everything because of corporate corruption. But they did put in place that rule about electronic brakes. Like, let's not have Civil War era brakes on these things. And Trump undid that. And Biden hasn't undid it. He hasn't put it back in place for 2 years. And so Trump should be hiding in shame, not showing his face. And same for Biden. Biden, who stepped in and prevented a strike by the workers who wanted not just more money, but more staff and sick leave, for God's sake. This was an almost 2-mile long train with a staff of 2 people and a trainee.
Say that again, David Swanson. I want people to understand because almost 150 cars, 1.9 miles long. Say that one more time. How many people on that train?
2 staff people and 1 trainee and not at the desire of the workers, not because it made any sense, but because it was profitable, which is likely the reason they quote unquote had to burn off carcinogenic chemicals and send them into the air, into the community for hundreds of miles, because it was the quickest, most profitable thing for them to do. This has been their interest. And you have people like Pete Buttigieg claiming nothing can be done. Well, you've got 4 giant companies using land they were given by the public to rake in record profits as more or less monopolies. You have railroad workers who want the right to organize and negotiate and strike without government interference. Some of these unions have demanded that the government nationalize these freight trains, take them over, give the workers basic rights. Even though the government has done no good to them so far, they're so sick and tired of the power of these corporations that they'd rather see the thing nationalized.
Well, I mean, where do we go from here? I know you've got to take the kiddos to school, and we want to thank you for being with us today. But this is just, the optics on this. I can't believe that President Biden is in Ukraine while President Trump is there. Just the optics on that are just so bad.
It really is. And we shouldn't be confused that he's doing some good in Ukraine, that he's helping Ukrainians rather than the people of Ohio and the United States. He's damaging Ukraine and the world. The money is going into war, and it's the kind of money, not just $100 billion in free weapons for Ukraine, but the $1 trillion a year into militarism across the globe, is the kind of money that could transform Ohio and the rest of the United States and the rest of the planet. If we took a fraction of it and put it to good use. So, I don't care where Biden is, unless he's willing to retire, but I think the money needs to be put into human and environmental needs. We need the Congress to say whether Biden likes it or not. Let's move a little bit of money from the war machine into upgrading this third world level infrastructure that the United States is struggling to get by with. And, they have national ownership of all the waterways and the highways. Why not the railways? And why not make them modern railways? Why have these decrepit, falling apart rails? Because you have over 1,000 derailments every year in the United States. It's considered normal. Only some of them result in giant fires of carcinogenic, toxic chemicals, and most of them don't. But Pete Buttigieg could change the rule today. You have to label all these traits. The local officials have to know what's in them. The White House and Congress today could put that break rule back in place. The White House could stop supporting his court case to block suits against these train corporations, and they could put in place all the improvements and upgrades and more that the Obama team talked about and never did. They're just focused, as you say, on fighting wars.
Just unbelievable. David Swanson, can you imagine a world beyond war? Wow. Everyone, how can we get in touch with you, David Swanson?
Oh, DavidSwanson.org works. So does WorldBeyondWar.org. And if you want to do something about these trains, check out another place I work, RootsAction.org.
That's right, Roots Action. Thank you so much, and my love to the family. Well, you know what? Let's do absolutely. Let's do a round robin. I mean, this is just. Can you believe this train was 1.9 miles long. You have 2 professional staffers and 1 person a trainee. CK, that's criminal. Okay, now wait a minute. CK, we can barely hear you. Do you have earbuds in? If you do, if you have earbuds, okay. Okay.
No, I don't have earbuds.
Okay, very good.
There's going to be a lot of litigation surrounding this, without a question. There's going to be civil litigation. There won't be a basis that will be put forth for any type of criminal charges against Norfolk Southern. That's just not what they're going to do. But there will be civil litigation because there have been dangerous chemicals that will undoubtedly and have impacted the community. And lawyers are probably having a field day right now. So there's going to be litigation to try to address this, to get some redress for the family. The issue, and Norfolk Southern, they've got insurance, so the insurance will cover it, and there'll be another day. It's just the cost of doing business for them. But via executive order, the president could, he can travel wherever he wants to travel. Optics are awful. And what Donald Trump is doing, he's just running for the presidency in 2024. That's all he's doing. And President Biden is running the country, but he's also running for president in 2024. So I think that the political machinery is going to continue with people posturing to become president for the upcoming election, because they're going to be here before we know it. But in terms of the people, the only redress they're going to get and have to pursue is going to be through the civil courts, multi-district litigation. All the lawyers are going to get paid in a big way, and the people will get some type of redress for damages that can be proven and for the displacement and all that. That's what's going to happen. That's the movement from a legal standpoint. But I suggest that President Biden, via executive order, right this wrong. He can do that. He can pass executive orders. He can do that to make a difference, and that could help the community. And I hope that he's examining that. I hope he plans on doing that, because otherwise, this is as bad as Katrina, from my standpoint.
It's worse. Oh my gosh.
And it's not being treated like Katrina. That's the thing that's really shocking. It's not being treated like Katrina. This is not a time for people to politically posture. It's a time to help the people in that community. They're really, really suffering. Really suffering. And it is, like you said, Santita, it's going to spread to other parts of Ohio.
And Pennsylvania. And wait a minute, the Great Lakes region. See, the thing about the Great Lakes, Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior. We learned homes mnemonically. It's one big lake, everybody. It's divided into 5 parts, but it's one big lake. That's Chicago, that's Detroit, that's Buffalo, that's everywhere.
But the kids don't learn geography today, so a lot of kids may not realize that.
I'm going to help them.
But it's actually significant. It's going to have, these are lakes. So it's going to have, this is an environmental crisis of the magnitude, or as you said, worse than Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not being treated that way. And it needs to be treated that way because that's the only way that there can be, in addition to litigation, which takes time, redress for the citizens who are experiencing this every single day. It has changed their lives. And these are people who don't have the money to simply relocate and then wait, figure out, and try to this and that. They don't have the money to do that. So they're being disproportionately impacted.
Sure.
The litigation, the lawyers, I'm sure, are defending, I know a few lawyers who are down there defending upon the area. I'm not being critical of that because redress, damages, however you can get it, you should get it if you're in that position.
Mm-hmm.
But they need the money quickly. They need to have it addressed quickly.
Well, they need it as quickly as we give money to Ukraine, CK. Okay? As quickly as we give money to the Pentagon. They don't even have to ask for more money. I mean, you've got Barbara Lee, who is trying to get $100 billion taken out of the Pentagon budget, which is enough to power all American homes with solar power. For example, we could hire millions of elementary school teachers. These are things we're not even thinking. Stay right there, CK. Let me go to you, Dr. Gibbs, professor of history. I mean, because, when you talk about you and Bryce Green and I have had to fight against being called, people who are defending Putin. I'm like, I'm not going to defend an invasion, but I don't defend a CIA coup either that overtakes someone's country, which helped to prompt all of this in 2014. So help me. Because to see the optics on seeing President Trump in Ohio, while we got the president in Ukraine, was like, I said, who are you serious right now? This is crazy. Dr. Gibbs.
Well, one of the things that is very clear is the extent to which there's always been a political culture in the United States that's prioritized funding for warfare over everything else. Just one example of this. Several months ago, the Biden administration proposed $33 billion for aid, including military aid to Ukraine, and Congress said that wasn't enough and upped it to $40 billion, just like that. Every Democrat without exception voted for the $40 billion. In my lifetime, I've never heard of anything like this happening with a social program. Let's say the president goes to Congress and proposes a whopping $33 billion, let's say, education or health care. And then Congress ups it to $40 billion. That's not enough. $40 billion is what we need. Nothing like that has ever happened with the social program or ever will happen, probably, with the social program. But for warfare, for some reason, it's a privileged sector. It's seen as far more important than everything else. And one really has to question the logic of that, why warfare is so heavily prioritized in our political culture in this country. One of the things we're seeing here are things like basic safety, basic environmental safety, the safety of communities in places like, let's say, East Palestine, Ohio, is of such low importance that it receives almost no attention at all, even after the catastrophe occurs. And that's just something very dramatic about our political priorities here. And I guess one more point I did want to make is that, the American public is generally speaking not enthusiastic about warfare, and they can be brought into the idea of war through appeals to an international crisis, sometimes manufactured in some cases or greatly exaggerated, sometimes created by the United States. As you noted, the U.S. faced one of the triggers to the current war we're having is an American-supported coup in 2014 that took place in Ukraine. The public will go along with that for a brief period of time, but typically, just in the past, what's happened is the public has gotten tired of it fairly quickly. We saw that with the war on terror. After a couple of years, the public tired of the war on terror, and many of the people who supported George Bush's presidency and the war on terror more specifically became very hostile to the whole idea and turned against it. I think you'll start seeing that now with the Ukraine war. People will start questioning whether we're spending far too much blowing things up in Ukraine, and maybe not enough spent to help people in places like, let's say, East Palestine, Ohio. I think that's going to come up fairly dramatically now in American politics.
I was wondering about that. I said, do you think, Dr. Gibbs, do you think this might prompt a conversation about war and peace? I mean, it's so ironic that this happened right on the heels of, in the midst of the Rage Against the War Machine rally. as the so-called right and left. I'm like, this is not a right-left issue for me, a war and peace. And neither is what's happening in East Palestine, Ohio. In fact, they overwhelmingly voted for President Trump because they thought President Trump, Citizen Trump, was going to go to Washington and fight for them. That's why they voted for him. Now, some people, some of them have white supremacist inclinations. Don't put that all. That's not fair. People vote for folks for a whole host of reasons. A whole host of reasons, Dr. Gibbs. And they voted for President Trump. And you saw the mayor of East Palestine standing behind former President Trump yesterday. And he said, I feel like President Biden slapped me in the face. Oh my gosh. I mean, my heart just broke for them. But I was like, how are y'all so tone deaf? And Pete Buttigieg, where are you? What you doing?
Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, one of the things you've seen is, the people of East Palestine, Ohio, have been betrayed by both Trump and Biden. I mean, Trump, of course, he's the one who loosened the regulations on safety that made this possible, and then Biden and Pete Buttigieg didn't reestablish them. And then after the disaster occurred, they pretty much ignored it. As we know, Biden went off to this sort of campaign-style tour of Ukraine rather than going to Ohio. And, it's a very dramatic statement of where his priorities really are. And I think it's, I think you will start to see the rise of opposition to the U.S. policy in Ukraine from the public. The barriers to an anti-war movement will be formidable because I've never seen in my lifetime the extent to which the press has been united behind war in lockstep with a propagandistic tone that's extraordinary and uniform. And where the Democratic Party, at least so far, has been in absolute lockstep with no dissent allowed whatsoever. I've never seen that before, not to this extent. Even during the War on Terror, it wasn't this bad. And so I think that will be an impediment to getting any anti-war discussion going. But it will get going all the same because this is a country where people do vote. This is a country where, despite all the imperfections and corruptions of the political system, votes do matter at some point. And I think this is going to basically become a major political liability for the Biden administration, the whole war in Ukraine. And I think people start to ask questions about how did the war start? What was the U.S. role in provoking the war? How did the U.S. conduct itself in things like almost certainly blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, for which we have increasing evidence that it almost certainly was the United States that was behind that explosion. I think people will begin to start asking these questions, and they'll start demanding answers.
And they want to know where's the money. Where is the money, Bryce Green? Before we go to break, I hope you all can stay with us for a while. Where is the money? They want to know where the money is. But more than that, I heard this man say, I'm 65 years old. I want to retire. He said, you've taken that from me. He was speaking to the CEO of Norfolk Southern. He said, you've taken that from me. Now I don't know if I'm going to be sick. He said, I'm diabetic. I've got health issues. And now you give me this? And no one wants to talk about it. The corporate media has tried to bury the story. This happened February 3rd, everybody. February 3rd. And you want to get hyped up about something that is happening overseas. Hey, I think that you should fight autocracy. But I didn't see anyone getting this ruffled up about South Africa, CK, when you were in law school and I was in college. And I got arrested at the South African Embassy in Washington, D.C. Remember, while Nelson Mandela was president of the Republic of South Africa, he was considered to be a terrorist by the United States government through his presidency. So don't come to me with all of this. I want to know what your standards are. And I want to know what you're going to do for the people of East Palestine, Ohio, and all the way around, and in Pennsylvania, and every place else. And if it hits Chicago, and Detroit, and Buffalo. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. You all can talk now because I'm ranting today, but CK, everybody, I saw that town hall meeting last night and I was infuriated. I said, this could happen to anybody. And it's happening to everybody.
It's happening in other places. We aren't hearing about it. This is not a new narrative.
No, it's not. I mean, but the fact that we're not hearing about it, I think is just shameful. It's
We have to
shameful.
hit our break.
Okay, fantastic. Oh, that's right, Robert. You say you sure enough remember South Africa. No one got upset about South Africa. These folks killed more black folks in South Africa and made their lives a living hell. And nobody said a thing. And Reverend stuck his neck out there in 84, making a case for people who were considered terrorists. That was the ANC. The ANC was considered to be a terrorist organization. And the lead terrorist was Nelson Mandela, followed very closely by his partner, Walter Sisulu. And he was classified as a terrorist when he was the president of the country, by our country. And then you want to go and save somebody else? Oh, look, I'm salty about that. Oh, no, no, no. Bryce Green, Dr. Gibbs, I don't know who's still there. Who do I still have here? I know Daryl Jones, we're going to get to you.
You have Dr. Gibbs, Attorney Hoffler, Bryce Green, and Attorney Jones. We do have one caller on the line.
Okay.
As soon as we answer that call, I can call up our next guest.
Okay, fantastic. Mel Buer. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, great. You all can have at it. You all can start talking. We have about 4 or 5 minutes before we go to, before we come back up on the air. And, you know, Daryl, you can say something. I don't want you to give your best stuff. Bryce?
I said, unfortunately, I hop off and get ready for class. But thank you for having me on.
Well, give us some closing thoughts.
Well, my closing thoughts are just that this represents a longer theme in American politics, that there's a failure to protect its people, and there's failure to protect people around the world. I mean, you've seen this with like the derailment in East Palestine, but also the failure to protect people from COVID-19, the failure to protect people from police violence, the failure to protect people from economic precarity, the failure to protect the people of Ukraine from destruction by not negotiating a way out of this war and by provoking it and pushing for it and escalating it. It seems that if there's any sort of legitimacy in a government, it's based on its ability to protect the people. But slowly we're seeing that eroding among not only the American people, but also the rest of the world. We're seeing anti-NATO protests in Europe, things that I would be very surprised to see a year or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
And people are starting to realize that this entire regime isn't based on protecting people and making people safe and making things better for people. It's based on greed, military power, and anti-democracy. I mean, that's at the root of it. And I think people are starting to realize that. Whether or not people will cynically capitalize on it, or whether or not it'll lead to real change, remains hard to see. But I try to be hopeful.
Well, we're going to let you go now, but I'm going to have you back. If not tomorrow, real soon. Go on and knock them out in class. Soon to be Dr. Green. I love it. I love it. I love it. But, oh boy, it's just a lot, but this is how government works. And this is how all of this works. CK, Dr. Gibbs, Attorney Jones, this is how this thing works. And I think we need to know that. But, I'm tired of the name calling when you try to just present the facts about Ukraine. And when you just say, wait a minute, the optics on this are bad. This is not, I'm not a right winger. Are you serious? No. And you're not going to shut me up by giving me a label. I've lived with labels, honey. You can't say any more to me. You can't say any more about me. Really. I'm done with that. Miss me on all of that. This is ridiculous. This is, Daryl, this is horrible. This is horrifying. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. Think about these people. And, and these are carcinogens they release in the air. Cancer-causing chemicals. People are sick right now. Your dogs are dying. Your cats are dying. The fish are dead. You stir the water in the creek and foam comes up. What? And then you put a CEO in blue jeans and you just say, well, I'm going to make this right. Oh, are you serious? You gave them a little bit more than $1 million. Your company's worth $53 billion. And you fought against regulations. What are you doing driving a train that is 1.9 miles long? Somebody explain this to me. I don't operate trains, but I know that's crazy and cumbersome. I mean, CK, as the operator of the train, how are you gonna look back 1.9 miles? You know he's past 40 or past 20. Past 25. You can't see 1.9 miles away. Girl, get out of here. It's crazy. Uh-huh. Little ageist humor.
Right, and I don't want anyone to misinterpret the laughing. You're laughing to keep from crying because these are actual people and families and children. The lasting impact is going to be on the children.
Oh gosh. Wait a minute. Those that get here, CK. Oh, I'm not trying to be jacked up, but St. Jude will be full, and so will the Shriners Hospital, filled with these children and their children. And for what?
You can only imagine if you're an expecting mother and you're going through this.
Oh.
Or if you're expecting mother, or if you have that risk. How about this? If you have you're pregnant, you have medical issues that are resulting, right? And I don't know where high school in terms of their laws after the repeal of Roe versus Wade, but you may need to have an intervention, but it's against the law to have an intervention because some of the laws are draconian. We have about 25 seconds.
Okay, stand by, everybody.
We have 2 callers.
Okay, and put this stuff out here. Remember, I have callers. Did we get Mel Buer up?
We don't. I suggest we take the callers first.
Okay,
so that
we
we're
will.
able to get her up.
Could you call Mel on your mobile phone and just let Mel know that we will be calling Mel?
Sure.
Okay,
sure,
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All
All right, we're coming up. Thanks. And I'll do my live read.
The Santita Jackson Show.
Hey everybody, it's Thursday, February 23rd, the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. Boy, we have quite the conversation. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, sending you all much love. You all have snowmageddon 10 inches already. That was 3 hours ago. Ooh, you might even get 2 feet of snow. Unbelievable. 70 million people are under a winter storm advisory in the United States. God bless you all, particularly our AM 950 radio family, Chad and Gary Hines and all my folks, Reverend McAfee, Spike, all of you, sending you much love today. Whew. We're talking about what's happening with this Norfolk Southern train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, just about 85 miles away from Cleveland. This is really, really bad. And what's awful is that you see all of these institutions that are exalted in our society, corporate media, government, all of them. They have really tried to bury this story. And yet, truth close to the earth is going to rise. Think about that, everybody. A train 1.9 miles long. You have 2 full-time employees and a trainee. Are you serious? Yeah, Mark, I hear you. And I meant it. Past 40, you can't see 1.9 miles down the road. How are you going to drive something that's 1.9 miles long? That's hooked up train to train to train. That is insane. Insane. Just greedy. And how are you going to take care of these people? And how can you compensate people for life? We got a lot to talk about today on the Santita Jackson Show. So I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. Let's talk about it because of all people, President Trump went down there after he overturned the regulations that the Obama administration tried to institute to make these trains safer. We still have a braking system in our train system in the United States that is from the Civil War era. That's 160 years ago, everybody. So while we're rebuilding all these other countries, we need to rebuild our own. Label that what you will. That's what we need to do. In Chicago, we have a high of 42 degrees. It will be windy today and it's foggy because the cold and the warm air are meeting. What is that going to mean for us? Minneapolis, St. Paul, 19 degrees. You are in the midst of that winter storm. Praying for you, everybody. It is still snowing. It's been snowing for 3 days in Chicago. The NHL, well, we have to follow them because the NBA is still on All-Star break until tomorrow. Chicago 4 last night, the Stars 3. The Wild will be playing the Blue Jackets tonight. And everybody, 70 million Americans are living under a winter weather advisory. Let us pray for everybody. Let us pray for everybody. And let's talk about what's happening in Ohio, a story that the corporate media have tried to bury, but they can't bury it. They can't, and we should not allow that. Everybody, I want you to know we're talking about financial freedom. Financial freedom. If you are a first-time home buyer, Team Hochberg has some information for you. You have not owned a home within the past 3 years. That means you're a first-time home buyer if you try to buy a home now. So you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. First-time home buyers made up just 26% of home buyers last year, down from 34% the year before. It's the lowest number of home buyers in over 40 years. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac want to turn these numbers around by investing in first-time home buyers with substantially lower rates. If you have, or if you live in the Chicago area, and if you earn less than $105,700 a year, and that's most people, and you have not owned a home within the past 3 years now, everybody, that's critical. Call Team Hochberg today to see if you qualify for these amazingly low interest rates. And you need to do it right away because these conditions could change at any time. So you can't make this stuff up. Please, everybody, the special offer, this can change at any time. So follow what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are doing. They're trying to give you a break. They're trying to make you a homeowner. Everybody, don't miss this opportunity to score some low rates on your mortgages. To see if you, your kids, or grandkids qualify for these amazingly low rates, please call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or 855-56-328-43. 855-563-2843, everybody, or go to 56david.com and get some more information. Go on, everybody, hurry up and make that happen. So we've got a tremendous group of people today with us. We've got history professor from the University of Arizona, Dr. David Gibbs. We've got attorney C.K. Hoffler, past president of the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest Black bar association in the world. And we have got attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, Mel Buer, who's so excited, from the Real News Network, associate editor there. And it's just, I cannot wait to hear how to get feedback from all of you today, because we need to talk about what's happening in Ohio. We just said goodbye to Bryce Green. We had David Swanson on. We need to talk about this. Before we bring on Mel Buer, I want to find out from you, Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. When you hear this story, we were talking during the break about the fears that people have about getting sick, and people are already sick. The state of Ohio, everybody, opened up a health clinic because so many people were complaining about getting sick. Well, they were reporting, not complaining, they were reporting that they're sick. But guess what, Darrell? The people got to the clinic and they were so sick that the physicians didn't know what to do. So they had to call in toxicologists, people who study poison, to study them. That's what we're dealing with right now. Darrell?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Santita, and right on point as usual. Look, if you're in East Palestine, Ohio, and you have this accident that occurs in these chemicals, these chlorides that are being released not only into the air, but also into the water supply, to the food supply, Everything is contaminated. On top of all of that, you hear about the potential that there could have been an explosion, so they're going to burn to release more toxics into the air. If you're living in East Palestine, Ohio, and you're an expecting mother, what are you going to do? Your level of fear is out of the roof. If you're an elderly person who's having respiratory issues, your fear is out of the roof. There are only 5,000 people that live in East Palestine, Ohio. But what folks have to remember is that this isn't limited to that geographical area where this incident has occurred. 40 miles outside, which is not very far, 40 miles outside of East Palestine, you get into Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 20 miles, you get into Youngstown, Ohio. So it is a huge incident of what has occurred there in East Palestine, Ohio. What really raises concern, and we understand that the president has called all over the place for his attention, but it's as you said earlier, it's horrible optics for the president to take the trip and stand for the citizens of Ukraine, while he cannot stand for the U.S. residents who are frightened there in East Palestine, Ohio. It's horrible optics. Horrible optics. You got to take care of home first, and that's where the focus has got to be. And the delayed response, all the talk about holding people responsible. Let me tell you, folks in East Palestine, Ohio, right now, they're not. Their concern is about holding people responsible. Right now, their concern is: am I safe? Is my child safe? Is my family safe? What can I do? What must be done? It's the fear of the unknown that's existing right there, right now, Santita, and that is what we're grappling with at this point in time.
And and I want people to understand as I go to the callers and as we bring up Mel Buer, the reason I'm talking about this today in the midst of our election in Chicago, all these things are happening right now. You're seeing how government works. We should be concerned about this because this could be us. And we share the Great Lakes. All 5 Great Lakes is one body of water. They just have different tributaries that send them to different places. This will impact us. It's going to impact a lot of people. It's not just Ohio. It's not just the border of Pennsylvania. This is a lot of people. And the way they're treating them is the way they will treat us. We've got a lead water problem in Chicago right now. Hundreds of thousands of pipes need to be replaced. We've replaced 400. Are you serious right now? Let me go to Ann. Ann, what's on your mind today?
Santita.
Yes, ma'am.
What I want to say is what they're doing is wrong because we need our money in our own country. It's time to help our people. We don't want our people to be left out. It's time for us to start helping our people. That's dangerous. That's going to take a lot of money to find out if that gas and stuff that can come in the air. So it's time for them to start helping our people, whether it's Democrat, Republican, or either liberal. It's time for them to come together and figure out this because they cannot short their own country.
No, ma'am, I hear you. Miss Ann, I hear you. You got to take care of the United States. You've got to. That's only fair. Sending you much love today. Thank you so much for calling in. She said, wait, I can't take it anymore. Is it Azalea? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Francis and Kirkman. Can you hear me?
Okay, now I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I turned the speaker off maybe so you could hear me better. What I was calling about is I heard that the mayor of East Palestine, Ohio, refused President President Biden coming. Did you hear that?
No, ma'am, I didn't hear that at all.
We talking.
Yeah,
well.
But that doesn't mean it wasn't true. I think people are reading a lot into the fact that former President Trump went there. and he stood with him, and that he did say that he felt that President Biden insulted them. He said, I feel like they've slapped us in the face when he went to Ukraine before he came here. Because this happened February 3rd. That having been said, he's walked some of that back. I'm sure people have come in on him and they've told him you shouldn't say that about the president, but I think he should say what's on his mind. I think we need to be respectful. You know, we don't have kings and queens here.
Did he say that he was partially to blame because he was, destroying everything that Obama had done, and that included, the fact that he did what he did to help cause this accident? But I really wonder if President Biden, if they refuse him to come because they voted for Trump.
No. I don't think so.
I don't know.
No.
All the details and things.
I don't know because they want Pete. No, ma'am. Because but they want Pete Buttigieg to come. They want help now. Because at the end of the day, it would mean a lot. Optically, it is not a good thing for the president not to be there. You're the president of people who don't vote for you. No, it doesn't. But leadership, but ma'am, no. With leadership, and I've seen Reverend Jackson do this all of my life. He's gone to places where people don't like him. But because they needed him, he shows up, and the president should do no less. That's it. Otherwise, you don't deserve to be in the space. You shouldn't be president if you're not going to serve everybody, even when they don't like you.
We have Mel Buer on.
Mel Buer, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Oh, you're walking into, I've got a whole host of people around here who can ask you a lot of questions. You've got the former president of the National Bar Association, attorney C.K. Hoffler. She's a legal analyst on Court TV. She's also chair of Rainbow Push. And the NBA is one of the largest. It is the largest Black Bar Association in the world. You've got Dr. David Gibbs, history professor from University of Arizona. You have got attorney Darrell Jones, brilliant attorney who's the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. But you need to help us to understand what we're seeing. You got a train 1.9 miles long, 2 full-time employees on it and a trainee. This just sounds crazy. And then you've got the president in Ukraine and President Trump, who gave us some of who further deregulated the railway system that President Obama was trying to bring into maybe the end of the 19th century, because the braking system hasn't been changed in 160 years. You've got the floor, Mel Buer. You're going to give us the real news, and I love it. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back on. I think the big thing to underscore about this derailment, and sort of the literal and figurative fallout that has come from the last couple of weeks is, rail workers have been kind of, over the last many years, have been sort of warning that this kind of derailment would happen. And indeed, it has happened in the past. And subsequent administrations from Obama to Trump to Biden have either dragged their feet on regulating the rail industry or actively, taken an active role in deregulating the industry to the detriment of public safety, really. And rail workers have been fighting for quite some time to institute mandatory minimums for train crew staffing, to shorten the length of trains, to really call attention to what the rail industry has called precision scheduled railroading, which is essentially creating skeleton crews, staffing cuts, in service of profit. And Norfolk Southern has made billions of dollars every year, year after year, in profit, not even just income, profit, right? So they drag their feet and hem and haw about how more staffing and hiring better people, more people, and reducing these sort of safety incidents through better inspectors or inspections and technology is too much money that they get to pay. But they will do stock buybacks for their CEO or their biggest shareholders, right? Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. And I think, unfortunately, it took a disaster of this gravity magnitude for folks to really start to put pressure on the rail carriers like Norfolk Southern to have it give us answers, because this shouldn't be happening with such frequency.
I mean, it's 1,000 derailments a year in the United States. How is it that we have a braking system from the Civil War era? I mean, how does that happen? I mean, and we talk about the so-called so-called third world nations, the global South. I'm like, are you serious? Had anyone been to LaGuardia Airport until they built a new, as they've been building a new one? It was tape in the bathroom, trying to keep things together. Are you serious? The inattention to our infrastructure, Mel Viewer, is mind-boggling, and it's so dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. The braking systems are just one piece of it. I think a lot of folks on the rails would say that the braking systems are adequate and do their job for shorter, heavy trains, right? It becomes a problem when you have trains that are 150 cars long that are carrying, sort of mixed materials. Some of them hazmat, some of it not, right? Mm-hmm. And when you have these dangerous chemicals, then you have, God forbid, a derailment that happens for a number of different reasons. But it seems to be that a lot of them come from mismanaged track maintenance because there's just not enough people to pay attention to it, or they haven't done the required maintenance on the train cars themselves, right? It becomes a problem. And this deregulation was trying to target that problem exactly as it relates to hazardous materials on these trains. Having newer braking systems would, according to many experts, have reduced the severity of the derailment, may have made it less catastrophic, right? You have to remember that, the NTSB's current working theory is that a wheel bearing failed and had been failing for something like 20 miles before the train derailed, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And there were in the last couple of years where folks on the trains, inspectors at the yards, had called attention to the fact that these wheel bearings were failing. And, the rail carrier said, carry on, and what happened? The train derailed, right? So, better inspections and more attentiveness by the rail industry through regulation and the threat of consequences for not being attentive is something that I think a lot of rail workers would welcome,
I'm just trying to figure out how we get out of this. Mel, I've got a minute before we go to break, but, I hope you can stay with me for a while longer, because this is just, Janet Sherwood Sussman said, she thanks you for the useful information, but she said, why can't America build better levees too? I mean, and the thing is, you know what, Mrs. Sussman, we could do all these things. We have the money, but we misappropriate our funds. We're spending money, making money for a few people. And this is our money. Our money. Think about that. Taxpayer dollars. Half the Pentagon budget goes to private contractors who are paid millions upon millions of dollars. They don't even spread this to the enlistees. There are payday loan stations on the edges of bases all over the country because the people who enlist in our armed forces, they don't make enough money to feed their families or themselves. That's shameful. And it's got to stop before I see some more planes flying over me at the NFL games. Just miss me with all of that, because you don't care about these people, and you don't care about the people of Ohio and Flint and Chicago and Jackson, Mississippi. How can you say you love America and you don't like Americans? Are you serious right now? Call me at 773-763-9278. We've got Mel Buer from the Real News Network. That's right, because she's been reporting on this. There's no better reporter in America today on labor issues. We thank God for her. Stay right here with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Mel Buer, I'd love for you to meet my panel, Attorney Hoffler, Dr. Gibbs, Attorney Jones.
Hello? Hello? Yes, hello. Hi.
You all say hello to. I mean, I love what Mel has been writing, and she's been on the show before, and it's always wonderful to see someone who writes about labor and someone who really actually considers laborers. Can you imagine that? You know, someone who's not just taking the side of big business. And Mel has a holistic approach. But Mel's a real journalist, so I appreciate that. So everyone say hello to Mel.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure to come and listen to you spit and fire. I love it.
Well, you know, I am so through. I saw the CNN town hall meeting last night. And I don't.
You know, I missed it, unfortunately.
You know,
but I heard some.
Go and watch it.
Watch it. Great.
It's going to make you go, you know, you cannot be serious right now. Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, watching the CEO of Norfolk Southern, you know, looking, you know, he's quiet. I said, you know, I remember Roger and Me, the Michael Moore movie. And he could not get close to the headquarters of GM. I mean, there's so many layers around these CEOs and chairs of boards because they are the masters of the universe. And so to see him and to see these people, they were speaking truth to power. They said, no. I'm not going to let you get away with this. No, Governor DeWine, we don't trust what you all are doing. I don't want to go back home. I mean, here, Norfolk Southern just gave his campaign the maximum allowable just a few weeks ago, $10,000. And the corporate media don't talk about that. Right. They don't talk about any of the pertinent issues. They've given him the maximum amount of money they can give a candidate. And this, to me, is not a Republican or Democratic thing, Mel or CK or Dr. Gibbs or Attorney Jones. It's just not. This is just about right and wrong.
Ms. Jackson, we're going to have to drop someone so we can add Dr. Wolf.
Okay.
You can drop me because I've got to go to class, so I'll sign off, okay?
Well, Dr. Gibbs, say something very quickly. Can you give us a closing thought in less than a minute?
From me?
Yes, from you, yes.
Okay, yes, certainly. Just tell me when you're ready.
Right now, because I know you got to go.
All right, fine.
We're on Facebook Live now. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that, okay. I think that one of the things that the East Palestine disaster should alert us to is the extent to which the United States has been over-investing in war and under-investing in people's living standards and the quality of life for ordinary people in this country. And also around the world. Around the world, there's a great deal the United States could do other than war to raise people's living standards and to improve their lives and to do things like, for example, prevent pandemics in the future, not just in this country, but globally. And, you know, the recent disaster in East Palestine will hopefully have the silver lining of alerting people in this country to how we have been misspending our resources on war and doing it for too long.
Amen. I think so. Because we have the money. We do. We've got the money.
We have about 15 seconds.
Okay. And we will let you go. Thank you so much, Dr. Gibbs. Thank you for giving us the time.
I'll text you when we have Mel on, okay?
Okay, thank you so much. Oh, what a Mel, you said I was spitting fire this morning. Oh man, I'm fuming.
Stand by.
Oh wow. I just hate to see people mistreated.
Sorry, I meant when we have Dr. Wolf on, I'll text you.
Okay, no, of course. No, I got you. Don't. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Thursday, February 23rd. Hope you're getting out to vote in Chicago. February 28th, Tuesday, is the last day to vote. We could have a new mayor. Certainly, we will find out if no one gets 50% plus one, who will be in the runoff. Who will be the top two candidates? I wonder who. I want you to get out and vote, everybody. Get out and vote. And of course, we're going to have wall-to-wall coverage here on WCPT. 8:20. Cannot wait for that to happen on Tuesday night. All right, everybody. We have got Mel Viewer from the Real News Network, and we have got attorney C.K. Hoffler, Court TV legal analyst, chair of Rainbow Push, former president of the National Bar Association, the chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, attorney Daryl Jones, and we will be bringing up economist, brilliant economist, who's with us every Thursday at this time, Dr. Max Wolf. But let me just ask you this, Mel Viewer. What, how, what are we not being told? I mean, because the corporate media have really sought to not really focus on this story. You know, I guess they were hoping it was going to go away. All the dead fish and people's animals dying and whatnot, pets, people getting sick. I don't know how they thought that was going to happen, but okay, I'll take it. What's not being told? What are we missing here?
Well, you can kind of, I've been asked this question over the last a couple of weeks about corporate media sort of lagging behind very extensive coverage from local media since the derailment. The derailment has been catastrophic from the beginning, and local media in Ohio and near the village of East Palestine have really kind of been covering this quite a bit. The big problem is that corporate media sort of operates under a sort of mandate, I suppose you could say, and it's, it doesn't bleed, it doesn't leak, right? At the time when the derailment happened, you have to remember the sort of running commentary about the derailments is that they're common. They happen all the time. There's upwards of 1,000 to 1,500 derailments a year. So what makes this one newsworthy, right? It isn't until you have these dramatic images coming out of East Palestine after they burnt off these chemicals, and suddenly the sort of corporate national media starts to pay attention. And that's just a fact of how they work, right, how they operate. What we're seeing now is that, as usual, most media outlets will point towards the agencies that present a level of quote-unquote authority, right? And we see this with police reports all the time, right? And so what we're missing here, not because of, really just because this is kind of how our media ecosystem operates, but what we're really missing here is a continued sort of focus on the actual people who are affected by this disaster. And, the workers who have been calling attention to the threat of this kind of derailment for years. And, it's anecdotal and it's difficult sometimes for folks to really kind of zero in on that, simply for the fact that, communities are often overlooked when it comes to these kinds of big events. But the reality is that there are local and independent journalists like myself and like many others who are paying attention to and listening to what locals in the village of East Palestine are saying about the effects of the chemical burn-off. We're trying to call attention to and listen to the workers who have understandably been frustrated by, an administration who has over the last year completely ignored concerns, right? It's only because of this public outrage in the aftermath of this that we are actually seeing movement at the federal or state level. It remains to be seen if that's a meaningful sort of movement, but at least they're saying something and they're trying to pay attention to it now.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, because it is the outrage of the people. It is the fear of a movement of the people that has people moving. Now, Secretary Buttigieg, I think he's going to be going there. Should have been there weeks ago, but I'm glad he's going now. But this happened February 3rd, Mel. February 3rd. It's almost been a month. March is upon us. Why did it take this long?
I don't really have an answer for you. Unfortunately, the sort of, if we want to talk about Pete Buttigieg's belated response, that was from public pressure and a lot of independent outlets drawing attention to the fact that the Department of Transportation and the regulators who get their sort of direction from the Secretary of Transportation and the lawmakers themselves have, been subject to some pretty intense lobbying by the railroad industry in the last 10, 15 years. We're talking in 2022, the railroad industry, which is not just the 7 Class 1 freight rail carriers like Norfolk Southern or BNSF, right? But also individuals who maintain, freight cars or build freight cars, or lobbying arms like the American Association of Railroads, which is a sort of voluntary, almost oligarchical association of the railroads, right? They've been pumping money into Washington for a long time. It's the reason why the Obama-era regulations were not as stringent as they were originally proposed. It's the reason why the Trump administration, gleefully rolled back these regulations. And it's likely the reason why the Biden administration has dragged its feet on reinstating these regulations. Millions and millions of dollars in lobbying money goes into Washington every year to make sure that the rail carriers, who again make billions with a B, right, dollars of profit every year, they make sure that they can continue to make that profit at the expense of communities like East Palestine and at the expense of the workers who work on these railroads, and I think the biggest thing to really kind of hammer home here is that a lot of folks are trying to point the fingers at one institution or another. And what it comes down to is it's a series of failures really kind of brought about by the railroad industry's quest for unreal profit, truly at the expense of everyone involved, except for the ones who are, signing the checks to their shareholders and pocketing that money themselves.
Dr. Maxwell, you've got to help me with this. Economics, that's your wheelhouse. I mean, these companies are making pure profit. They are not investing in modernizing the railway, in modernizing their operating systems. They are trying to pay fewer and fewer people less and less to operate these trains. That train was 1.9 miles long. Look, anyone who's past 40, and just about everybody here is, you can't see 1.9 miles down the road, let alone drive a train. It's just crazy. And then the optics of the president being in Ukraine. Hey, support Ukraine, absolutely. But this happened February 3rd. And you expect not to get heat for that? And then you have someone who helped to roll back the regulations of your previous administration, of which you were the second top officer. He's getting the limelight. He's getting some credit. Former President Trump. Oh, wow. I don't even know where to begin. You tell me, what are we looking at in Ohio?
Part of what you might be looking at, though, is that if the people in this town and county have voted for the people who cost them their jobs, cost them their unions, and rolled back their safety provision, there isn't much reason for an elected official to fight with powered, moneyed interests in order to not be supported by these people in the polls. Right? So, there is a little bit of a problem with that, right? So, otherwise, if this community is going out and voting for the people who are most likely devastating their industrial jobs or moving them offshore or making it easier or deregulating the safety restrictions and allowing a 2-mile train or not requiring a more sort of robust definition of what the hazardous cargo, because all those things seem to be very much in front of the story. When you're asking a politician to be voted out by these people who they would be protecting while being defunded by the companies who give them money, and especially if you're in the House of Representatives, your primary job is to raise money for your next election. Your secondary job is to represent your constituents, because Citizens United consecrated that under law. This isn't to be flippant or be offensive, but if you set up that system that way, this is the outcome.
So where do you see all of this going? I mean, I think that it's a teachable moment. I'm hoping that we can I mean, that things can get right. I mean, I'm mindful of the fact that the people that the railroad company sent in to clean up the mess, they still don't have paid leave, paid sick leave. I mean, it's a sick system that is unsustainable. You cannot treat workers this way. You cannot function with a system that's 160 years old when people all over the world, Max, we travel all the time. People have all over the world, they have new train systems. I mean, you know how antiquated our system is. This is insane.
We also rely on it. So the rails are very important. They actually have a sort of new lease on life as a transportation because they're so much more efficient from a climate change perspective. And I also think, again, not to belittle this incident, which is major, but also generally speaking, the rails are often a safer way to move hazardous materials around than trucking, which is often how we do it. It's just a truck on the highway, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot to be said for rail, particularly a modernized rail and a properly regulated rail. And we're missing some of that modernization and some of that proper regulation for sure. And this is certainly a highlighting of that, right? But I think we're also at an inflection point in the country where the idea historically has largely been that the business of America is business. You don't stand in the way, and that there are pains that are suffered for the greater good and for the prosperity. And I think that was probably overdone at all moments historically, but people don't believe they're going to have a chance at that prosperity. They don't believe it's for them. They don't see it for their kids. And so being quiet for it and putting up with the bangs and the bruises and the disappointments for a prosperity you don't think you're going to get, or to follow a set of rules you don't think you'll be rewarded for following, is what's fraying, right? And it's fraying substantially. And that there may be benefits to the fact that it's fraying, but it's fraying, right? I think this story is a story that it is kind of interesting that it got big because we have other incidents like this, and we have sometimes really not properly paid attention to them. It should be anomalous, but it's not, actually. Mm-hmm. Not paying attention to the industrial costs and the issues of deregulation is pretty normal, right? I mean, we fired all the professional air traffic controllers and then mysteriously had a whole bunch of airplane crashes, which we never connected to that. Right? And basically, for-profit advertising tells Americans what to eat, and everybody has hypertension and obesity and diabetes. And we never seem to be able to connect those things. Right? So we do have a problem here that extends to our pharmaceutical drugs, to our food, to our education system, to our retirement programs, right? All of which have some kind of a derailment issue periodically. And I think we're just in one of these periods when an old way of handling things, which probably didn't work for the majority of people, gives way to some proposals about new ways to handle things. And there's the opportunity for things to get better and the possibility for things to get worse. But at least things are being discussed, right? So I think as much as this should have gotten more attention, you could also be somewhat interested that it got as much attention as it did. Now, unfortunately, a lot of that attention was the people who got the EPA and think it should be shut down, screaming that it didn't have more authority here to take a shot at Biden, or the Biden administration sort of championing themselves as less worse than their alternatives, which maybe not the most optimistic moment we've had as a country, but at least we're discussing it.
Well, at least we are discussing it. I mean, I'm going to do a round robin because I want to back up with Dr. Wolf and Mel Buer. I mean, what's next, CK? In a couple of minutes. What is next?
Well, Santita, what's next is litigation. I hate to put it that way, and the litigation would go against really not just the private sector, but also the public sector. So the Department of Transportation, just like it would go against Norfolk Southern. And that's the only way that from a civil standpoint, talk about civil litigation, that the individuals will be able to get redressed. I think that's going to happen. If you think about Ohio, I did do some research. Ohio, immediately after Roe versus Wade was overturned, the legislation that was draconian, that basically bans abortion, was outlawed, and that became the law. So after 6 weeks, if there's a woman, because of exposure to these chemicals, that needs medical intervention, then she may not be able to get it legally in Ohio. We just need to think about that, ponder that. I think that's very important. So litigation is what's going to happen then.
You know, and that is the beginning. You know, but I think about all of these people, Daryl Jones. I think that we would not be seeing this story. We would not be talking about it if street heat didn't meet sweet heat. You know, litigation is so important. You know, but you need the NAACP and you need SCLC and you need Push and you need NAN. You need it all. But I mean, there's nothing like um, Attorney Daryl Jones, people who look like they're about to march and get you out of office. I mean, I think wish we'd take lobbyists out of this conversation because it's not the lobbyist, everybody. Lobbyists are hired guns. They work for the corporations. It's the corporations who are running this place. Daryl Jones, a couple minutes for you.
And Santita, you're absolutely right. It's the street heat that has brought this to the forefront, and it's the working people. You know, one of the things that sometimes people miss, right, is that President Biden ran as being an environmental president, that he had, this overwhelming environmental concern. He believes in the secretary also ran on this environmental issue. Well, here is the challenge to the environment there. In East Palestine, Ohio, dealing directly with those issues, dealing directly where corporate interest meets the environment. That's the intersection where we are right now. And what the citizens have got to do, and what we must be certain of, is that it's moments like this that determine the accountability of our elected officials. Do they stand for what they told us they stand for? If you stand with the environment, if you stand with the working people, then you'll be standing with the people that are in East Palestine, Ohio. Let me tell you, you got to remember, and I would love to hear Dr. Wolf's take on it, but you got to remember that a lot of the railroads and critical infrastructure that are through this nation generally go through communities that have little say about their potential safety conditions. They're generally going through communities of least resistance. They're generally trying to go through poorer communities. So the question is, right now, this is the time to stand up as an elected official and show where you stand in moments like this. And if you're standing in Ukraine when people are laying out afraid in your homeland here in the United States, that ain't a good look. That ain't a good picture. But right now, we need to know where they stand. And as you said, as we watched they're telling our hall last night in East Palestine, we can see the anger, we can hear the anger. And the question is now how you respond. And that's where we are at this moment. If they have the opportunity that's been presented to them to stand where they said they were going to stand in issues and circumstances like this, the question now is, will they do it, Santita? That's the question.
That is the question. Mel Buer, what should we be looking out for? Because now, because of this street heat, I mean, when I saw the town hall meeting last night on CNN, I said, oh, they're feeling something. I mean, this didn't just happen in a vacuum. This was not done altruistically. They know that they've got to, because no one trusts corporate media either. The Real News Network, one of my favorite outlets, and you are one of my favorite reporters. No one does better reporting on labor and laborers than you. What's next?
Well, certainly keep looking out for what the workers are trying to do in organizing reforms from them, right? There are sort of cross-craft labor organizations. That there are 13 different unions that work on the railroads, and there are members of each of those 13 unions who are working in a sort of caucus together to push messaging about reforms both at the legislative level and from within, right? As one of the workers that I've talked to in the last couple of weeks has said, you know, it's not just about one labor contract. Like, one labor contract isn't necessarily going to fix this problem, right? A series of things need to be addressed. So, on the one hand, you do have members of the labor movement who, you know, have been involved from the jump since this derailment to determine the cause of it, to find the problems, to continue to pressure Washington for increased public safety, and, you know, what folks have been saying in the last 10 minutes is correct. You know, there's already 7 or 8 lawsuits that have already been filed against Norfolk Southern since the derailment from members of the community, on behalf of members of the community, including one that I think is a class action lawsuit. So we're already seeing civil litigation happening in the town. And we're also, we're seeing what the results of, a continued pressure campaign has had on the folks in Washington. And I think all of this is really kind of what we're going to see moving forward. And really, this is the only way that we can kind of move forward in continuing to address the crumbling infrastructure of this country, right? And continue to pressure Biden, who also styles himself as a pro-labor president, who has yet to show the labor movement that he is that, right? This is, again, another opportunity for the Biden administration to kind of be leaders on this. It remains to be seen if they'll actually do it. Obviously, it didn't really happen last year with the rail contract, and with the Biden administration blocked those negotiations at the end. So we'll see what happens, right? Hopefully, and I'm an optimistic kind of person, and I really choose to look at this with the silver lining, if I can. That this hopefully is a wake-up call for regulators, and is a wake-up call for communities across the country, much like the pandemic was a wake-up call for a lot of folks. Hopefully this means that we see continued sustained pressure on our government to actually do their job, right? And to not be the type of people who continue to just take money from these interests, but to actually do something, anything, to listen to their constituents, right? The people who put them in power in the first place. So it's truly, and I say this with the deepest sympathy for the folks in Wisconsin, that it should not have taken a tragedy like this, like any of the things that happened with the rail industry or infrastructure. It should not have taken something like this to get folks with the power to do something to pay attention, and hopefully that, continues to be something that we can kind of hammer home in the weeks, months, and years to come. Because God forbid we're going to be seeing the fallout of this for quite some time.
Dr. Wolf, I've got 90 seconds. They belong to you.
Sure. So I think we're going to see a bunch more of these, in part because approximately 22 million Americans live within 2 miles of a Superfund site, which means they're at massive risk. And if you add that to climate change, you're going to see a lot of 100-year storms or 50-year storms or various sort of weather events, other events that might destabilize those communities. Right? And so I think this is something that's not going to be a one-off. I certainly hope it is, but I'm not so sure. And I think we also have to ask some difficult questions about our regulations. And people have to ask if, for instance, this community seems to have voted to deregulate everything, and for politicians who set up the conditions for the derailment. So we can look at just the incident, and that's important, or we can look at all the decisions that enabled the incident. And if you voted for all the conditions that destabilized the incident, then it's just happenstance to you today. And so maybe we have to start thinking about how we vote and what decisions we make as a group of people, because we will be collectively responsible. Because that train could have gone off the rails anywhere on its route. It's sort of happenstance that it's there. It could be your neighborhood, right? And we have large concentrations of large neighborhoods in the Superfund sites or adjacent to them. I mean, a big famously the 5th Ward in East Houston that have many more people just in the neighborhood than all of this town. So there's a lot of people at risk, 21 million.
Think about that.
This is a national emergency, and it's been there a long time. And I'm sure nobody who listens to your show will be utterly shocked and befuddled to know that where people live adjacent to dangerous rail lines, road lines, Superfund sites, those people are uniformly lower income and disproportionately people of color.
Stay right there. I want you to elaborate a little bit on the other side of the break before everyone has to go. Please stay with me, everybody. Get out and vote. Get out and vote. The last day to vote in the mayoral election and all these other automatics. February 28th. Get out and vote, everybody. Love you much. Whew. Okay. Does anyone want to say anything? Is there anything else you'd like to say, Attorney Darrell Jones? I know I've been on a rant all day, but it's been very upsetting watching these people, and particularly poor, vulnerable people who ordinarily are not heard, to see them mistreated this way. It just does something to me. It really does.
Santita, where Dr. Wolf was leading office was right where I was hoping he would go. And that is talking about the fact that a lot of these railroad track infrastructure system for railroad, they generally have gone through low-income communities and communities of color because, they were the ones that couldn't put up the big fight to stop big corporations from having the railroad lines to go through. So it disproportionately impacts these communities. And so now, when I say, and I said, that this is the opportunity for the president who claims to be, the people's guy, to step up and be the people's guy, to be the workers' guy. It's an opportunity for him to step up and be the union's guy. It's an opportunity for him to step up and do what's right by the people, not simply of East Palestine, but for every community that's affected by an incident that could happen along these lines. So that's where I see this, and I also see it as an opportunity for the voters. Certainly, this is the opportunity for voters to start seeing where their elected officials lie. Does your county executive, does your mayor, does your governor stand on the side of the working class person that's going through this incident? This is a high point moment, a high watermark moment to see, does your elected officials stand up to where you need them to stand up in times of controversy such as these, Santita?
I think so. I mean, CK, your final thoughts?
I agree with Daryl, what Daryl just said, and actually with many of the guests said today. I talk about litigation because sometimes when you have people in your pocket, it does make a difference. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be litigation for a long time. However, it is important for people to take this to the street. That's happened because there's an outcry of support of people in the community. But I want everyone to remember, during segregation, the way that you could distinguish between the black community and the white community was by the railroad track. Mm. You crossed the railroad track, typically you went into the black community, disadvantaged community. That still holds true, particularly in states like Florida, like Georgia. These derailments and people being killed by these trains, killed by trains. I've handled cases like this, that's why I know. This is not unusual. The only difference is the toxicity and people getting sick visibly, people dying, all of that. I remember almost 30 years ago, Santita, working on a case for the privatization of the rail system in Congo, Brazzaville, because the public sector, the parastatals, the state-owned agencies ran them, and they had very, very poor infrastructure. It sounds very familiar to me. But this was 30 years ago in a developing country in Central Africa. So we have a lot of work to do, and if we don't take this seriously and do it now, it is only going to be worse. It's going to get worse, and more people will be affected. Litigation is one avenue. It's always only one avenue. But there is an impact when you hit people in the pocket, because this is the cost of doing business for these railway companies. I don't want anyone to think that, they didn't know. They understand the risk. It's the cost of doing business. And they're willing to assume the risk because they have information from liability. And if they get hit here and there, well, they make billions of dollars. So getting hit with millions or even a $1 billion punitive damages verdict is not going to impact their bottom line because they've got insurance to cover it. But it does, of course, make them they can become more responsible corporate citizens. But the difference is in people taking to the streets and the people's stories that we are seeing. The women, the mothers, there are going to be children that will be deformed, that will have there are going to be fetal issues because of the women who are pregnant. I'm from Buffalo, New York. This is Love Canal, and it's happening all over again. There are going to be generations of people impacted. That's what we have to look forward to, Santita, and it's tragic.
Well, Mel, I mean, what do we do now? I mean, because the railway workers still could go on strike. I mean, there's a lot that's still it's just crackling. There's a lot of stuff that's just out here. You have the optics of President Biden being in Ukraine. He hasn't been to Ohio yet, and these people were talking about that yesterday. But I know they were talking about it before. How do we make things right?
Well, like I said, workers are working on various messaging and lobbying campaigns to make sure that they can improve safety standards on the railroad, to try and chip away at the precision schedule railroading that has made it impossible for them to not only have like a semblance of a work-life balance, but to also, do their jobs without being overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of it, right? And so that's going to be a continued sort of conversation that rail workers have, pushing and pressuring the rail industry to actually, make changes. As far as rail workers striking, it's very unlikely that we will see that in the future. There are a lot of various things that make that nearly impossible, including the legislation that led to a contract being sort of pushed onto the workforce without a vote last year, right? So it's difficult for us to see something like workers stopping work or walking off the job. That would take extreme organization, and I'm not sure that very many rail workers are quite at the point where they would be willing to strike at this moment, right? But certainly they're going to continue their pressure campaigns. Railroad Workers United, which is that caucus, has been showing up in the media, and it's been very visible about their calls to, for example, nationalize the railroad, to introduce more regulation, to more, to create mandatory minimums for train crew staffing, to sort of push back against the rail industry's continued quest for profit in very high-profile ways. So we're going to see more of that. And those folks are folks that I've known for over a year at this point, and are incredibly dedicated individuals who absolutely 100% are lifelong railroaders who care about the industry and care about the ways in which they interact with the community. So, we're going to see a lot more of that. And it's my hope that the continued pressure from the labor movement on a sort of bottom-up sort of strategy, and the Biden administration taking its cues from labor and doing top-down sort of regulation can rein in some of this devastation, and at least reduce the amount of derailments that we see, because these trains are too long and they don't have enough crew on them. So that's kind of what I'm thinking we're going to see in the future.
Because Dr. Wolf, 1.9 miles. That's just almost laughable. You can't see 1.9 miles down the road.
If you live within the 1.9 or 2 miles of one of these Superfund sites, you can be affected by all kinds of chemicals and spills which you can't see that are visible, right? You can get the cancer clusters and the litigation to bring that back up again, which often takes many, many years and can be difficult. And then sometimes dead ends because you're trying to make claims against institutions that may have gone bankrupt or not have the adequate insurance or assets to pursue. But if you want to think about the sort of financial side of it, about 70% of the people in East Palestine seem to be homeowners. The aggregate home price was about $90,000 before all this. Don't imagine that those houses are more sellable right now. So probably for most of the middle-class folks in this town, their primary asset, like most middle-class folks in the U.S., they're fortunate enough to own a home, was that home. And no, I don't think the resale value is going to be close to what it was a few weeks ago when no one had heard of this town and no one associated with, toxic spill. So obviously that has meaningful ramifications for whether you can sell your home and what kind of price you could look to get for a home, because it looked like the prices were pretty low before. And so this is probably going to devastate the wealth of the average resident of the town too, just because it's not a super wealthy area. So most of that wealth is probably tied up in owning local property, and obviously that's not unaffected by this.
It's just awful. And you could see the devastation when I was watching the town hall meeting last night. It was, I have to tell you, Sarah Seidner and Jake Tapper did a fine job. And I appreciate that the CEO of Norfolk Southern was there. and that Governor DeWine was there, and they were looking really, really nervous and contrite, or at least really, really nervous. But if you want contrition, if you want to do things the right way, you need to. This corporatocracy's got to be broken up. This is ridiculous. They own everything, and you're supposed to own everything. And yeah, I'm talking to you, everybody watching, listening. You're supposed to own you. You're supposed to own your government. It's not supposed to own you. These corporations, they wouldn't exist without your support. You've got to do something. And you've got to demand that this corporate, you've got to support independent media, because this corporate media is not going to tell you the truth. They have sat on this story for almost a month, and only heaven knows, and people have been sick. Can you imagine bringing a clinic to an area where you've had this kind of carcinogenic leakage, not even leakage, just overflow, and the doctors can't even take care of you because they need toxicologists? How did you justify a train that's 2 miles long? I'm with you, just round up. How'd you justify that? How do you justify a 2 mile long train having a 3-person crew, a 2-person crew with a helper? Because that's what a trainee is. Are you serious? And every Black and brown community that you see has a rail yard adjacent to it or running through it. Oh yeah, everybody ought to be, and poor communities, because these are poor people in East Palestine, Ohio. These are poor people, poor white folks, and it all doesn't matter to you what color they are. They're people. They're human beings, and they don't deserve this. No.
Look at where polyvinyl chloride is made, or refineries are located, or chemical plants are located. This is a 50-state story. It's not an Ohio story, particularly. So you can talk about Lake Charles, Louisiana, right? And you can talk about flammable ground, flammable water, and cancer rates that are not at or near national average levels, right? So we have this issue around some chemical plants, some refineries, certain facilities, even brownfields, deserted former chemical facilities. And it's not an Ohio story or a Pennsylvania story, although there's a lot of that in the industrial heartland, a lot of those places. But this is a 50-state story. It's a lot of communities. And yes, there's something very tangible and sweet about a derailment with a toxic spill, for sure. But this is a problem for millions and millions and millions of people in all 50 U.S. states.
So, what's next, Max? What do you see? Well, we have 1,000 derailments in the United States a year. Last year. So, it's almost this.
Most of them are not like this, right?
No, they're not like this. But you know what? The train was smoking for miles and miles and miles before they did anything. This is crazy. And the train's so long, you couldn't have stopped it if you tried. It would have taken you.
The enhanced braking. So part of it is, I think, there's an opportunity to take a second look, which we need to go back to being a little bit more careful about what we consider hazardous, right? Because clearly under the Trump administration, we decided to be very generous with what we determined to be hazardous. And that determination makes a big difference because there are ancillary security measures and safety measures that are required, it's my understanding, when cargo is recognized or labeled as hazardous. So at very first thing you might want to do is take a look at whether some of that deregulation, bought and paid for, no doubt, was worth it or not. It might also cut into the amount of alligator tears we have. And it is also surreal to watch people who ran on repealing the EPA criticize the speed and response of an agency they've defunded and we're trying to repeal. So there is also this surreal moment of American politics there. But to take a look at that, which is, do we think that there's a role for the government to increase the safety of people? Or not? We don't have to, but if we vote to get rid of it, then this is what we get. So we voted for this, right? Not everyone did, but a lot of people did. And that county, Columbiana County, 75% of that county seems to have voted for this deregulation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what? They voted for culture and they continue to vote against their interest. But you know, many of us do. You vote against your interest when you don't vote. You vote against your interest when you vote for someone. When you look, you know, someone told me a long time ago that God will send you to hell for believing a mirage. You're supposed to have discernment. And quite frankly, both parties are corporatist. And we have a responsibility to make this thing right because the corporations have run away with the country and they're killing it. I mean, this is not the way we're supposed to be living. But yeah, I realize America was always a business project, but my Lord, this is crazy. And seeing these people who are talking about having headaches, rashes, I get sent to the clinic that the state sets up. But you know what? The doctors said my training is inadequate to treat these people. They had to bring in toxicologists. Poison, people who deal with poison. Oh, man.
I'm trying to blame the victims here. The people didn't vote out this outcome.
Oh,
but
man.
they did vote to deregulate things, right?
Oh, yeah.
I know people vote on lots of issues. You know, I understand that this may not be something people thought about when they voted one way or another. I'm not blaming the victims here. But we have voted to deregulate all these businesses under the notion that they will self-regulate. And, you know, that's a great idea. It's always nice when it works out. It almost never does. And it's also a chance maybe to ask the question of whether or not we can leave private for-profit industry completely on its own in self-regulation. And we get a chance to ask this question a lot. We keep wanting to say yes, and there keeps being evidence, you know, that maybe we've taken that a little bit further. That makes sense. Or not that this is what people are going to think first and foremost. No, this is not good for the company either. Being held to a certain standard just means you plan around it. And I bet a lot of people in that company, at least right now, wish that there had been a little more precaution in place for their own benefit, for the benefit of their shareholders and the long-term viability of the enterprise. It's not even really good for them. This is, you know, years of litigation, years of potential bad press, follow-up stories, you know, all kinds of things that no reasonable corporate manager as a human being or based on their fiduciary duty to the company wants to be handling, wants to be defined by.
Mel Buer, is there anything you'd like to say before we go? And let me just thank you for your work. Really, thank you for your work.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. The one thing that I want to kind of just draw attention to in terms of this concept of people voted for this. These corporations lobby both parties equally. Norfolk Southern, by about a 5% margin, is skewing towards Republicans because Republicans are generally easier to convince to deregulate industries. They drop money in campaigns across the board. So this is a bipartisan issue. This isn't about necessarily GOP congressman over Democratic congressman, right, when it comes to these regulations as it relates to the rail industry. So, you know, at this point, it's like, doesn't really matter who you voted for. Guarantee you that the majority of those people have taken maximum donations from rail carriers who have tracked through that state, right? So, you know, when we talk about the lobbying arm of the rail industry, it's a myth. There's a lot of money going into it at the state and federal level. So when it comes to this conversation about what we can do to vote in better candidates, you know, continue to draw attention to where they're getting their campaign money from, you know, especially since Citizens United, as you say, you know, the more money that has come into campaigns, the easier it is for you to retain your seat, right? Who's giving them that money? It's certainly not just, you know, your regular mom and pop person neighbor down the street, right, giving $27 or whatever. You know, these corporations are pumping millions of dollars into these political campaigns because they know at some point they can send a lobbyist to that office and sway them and say, as you know, we gave you $18,000 for your last campaign. You should hear us out, right? So, you know, this is a sort of systemic problem. And we really cannot sit there and lay the blame entirely on voters who are apt to believe campaign promises and flashy messages, right? Because they are trying to find a candidate that can represent them and solve the problems in their community, right? I can't tell you how many times I've voted for a candidate and been completely disillusioned by their 180s once they get into office, right? So that's just the thing that I would like to drive home here. The other thing that I would like to say before I go is continue to listen to workers. Workers are the canary in the coal mine when it comes to this kind of stuff, because they're the ones who see this every day and who call out these problems every day, and who ultimately find themselves frustrated by the lack of movement by management or the corporations that they are employed by. You see time and time again that these corporations are the ones who are laying waste to working class communities across the country. That's really all I've got to say.
But I thank you for your reporting, because your reportage, really, you speak to workers, you listen to them. I'm not asking for anyone to favor anyone. I just want you to tell the whole story. And far too often, corporate media, what the story they tell is the story of the corporations, and the story that favors the corporations. They have completely they are complete perversion of a free press. That is not what they are. They are propaganda organs for corporations. Shame on them, and shame on us for tolerating it. You got to wake up. This is a form of government that requires your participation. Otherwise, you can just go on and have a monarchy. Let somebody else do it. But since we want to be a different kind of people, we've got to do it. So, Ms. Sussman, let me tell you what you do. Voting is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. Once you have voted, that's when the work for you begins. You must then call your representative, whether your person won or not, and they need to know you. They sure do, because every phone call you make, every email you send represents to them X number of voters or X number of citizens in their district. Believe it or not, your activism, your just showing up really does matter. It really does. People pay attention. That's right, girl. Just go on and do it, and encourage your friends to do it. I remember during the 1988 Super Bowl. Now, Max, you might not remember this. Mel, you might not remember it. But I remember the lead up to the Super Bowl. Doug Williams and John Elway. John Elway was going to destroy Doug Williams. Even though Doug Williams was one of the best college quarterbacks of all time, not just of his generation. But he played for Grambling, which was a historically black college with the most successful college coach in history, Coach Eddie Robinson, more successful than Bear Bryant. Okay. And even with all of that record and with the stellar performances he would turn out, no one gave him a prayer of beating John Elway and his team. And all the sportscasters were saying as the Super Bowl opened, oh, wait until John Elway does this. Oh, look at what he's going to do. In the first quarter, Doug Williams threw 4 touchdown passes, shut it down. And the commentators, then you know what their narrative was? Wait till Elway gets back. Are you serious right now? Oh, I was having a Super Bowl party. I was in college. And I had my friends, I said, no, let me tell you what I've learned. We're going to get on this phone, and one by one, we are going to call the station and let them know that we don't appreciate it. And we started calling our friends to let them know that we did not appreciate it. And on and on and on. Oh, they changed the tune by the second quarter. Oh, Robert, it was hilarious and comical. Yeah, but it really wasn't. It was awful. It was so disrespectful. You have to get in there and get involved. You must do it. When you do, things change. Reverend Jackson has often said that this is a right-wing country. It's always been a right-wing project. But those of us who have thought progressively and who thought into the future have moved the country in the right direction. You have to continue to do it. Power concedes nothing without demand. It never has, it never will. Thank you, Frederick Douglass. You must push. You got to push. And my Latino voice matters, Sister Yvonne. Happy birthday, girl. And she's going to be like me. She's going to celebrate all month. I'm not mad, girl, because I celebrate all July. And guess what? So does Max, because guess what? His daughter was born, we were born on the same day, literally at the same time. Mel, can you make that up? I told Max, I said, you'll never get rid of me. Bless his heart. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
I said, wait a minute, what time was she born? You went, not only was she born July 17th, I said, what time was she born? Oh my gosh. She was born, we were born.
She was born in 2017 too, so she had 17.
Oh,
that's
man.
a cool little birthday.
Oh, come on. Is that rich? Come on. I can't believe she's going to be 6, Max. Oh, wow.
Yeah. She's been telling everyone for 8 months and planning this birthday that she would know her. She's on advice. So, yeah, she's very focused on it. She's right down to the wire now. It's only 5 or 6 months left to go.
I love it. I love it. Well, I can't wait. One of these years, we're going to have to celebrate our birthdays together. I'm going to have a big party this year, I do believe. So I'll let you know. I'll let you know. My parties are tame.
Good.
I mean, I don't even drink. So
Very cake focused. Very cake
that's what I'm gonna have. It would be fun, and we would have nice music. And if she's at my party, guess what? We're just gonna have a good time, because I have parties where everybody can come. I believe in that. That's the kind of parties my parents had. My parents did not have parties where the children had to leave. Okay, so when we got to college, we had parties where my parents very smartly had us, all of our friends, we were at the house. So you never really got, you didn't go off, you really had to stay. Your behavior was not even restrained. It was what it was, because you were not going to be doing drugs and drinking around there. We didn't do that. Bring your kids home. Get to know their friends. And every party you have ought to be a party that the youngest person can attend. Otherwise, you shouldn't have the party, or you certainly shouldn't be there, because it's not right. Yeah, I said it. Oh, you all know I'm conservative socially. You know that, and you still love me. Whatever. But my social politics are quite progressive. So I love you all. Is there anything else anyone would like to say before we go? Woo. Okay, well, I love you. Board operator, are you still there? I think my board operator might have left, but I love Jewel. Jewel is an absolute gem. Seriously, no pun. I love you, everybody. Mindful civic engagement matters. And in order for this grand experiment called America to work, you got to make it work. You got to make it work. You're the ones. You keep waiting on somebody, you're it. So go on and make it happen. I love you all. I love you, love you, love you. And girl, happy birthday, Yvonne. Happy birthday, my sister. Sending you much love. All right. I love you, everybody. Love you, Max. Love you, Mel. God bless you. Love you, CK. Love you, Daryl. Love you, Dr. David Gibbs, David Swanson, Darius Brooks, Bryce Green, Dr. Shanina Knighton. I love you all. You make the show what it is. You do, you do, you do. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. And we do it all together. We do it for all of you and for each other. Keep each other encouraged and keep each other going. I love you. God bless you, everybody. Have a great one.